So we're back now. I've gone ahead and done a few more short row stitches. So basically, as I was saying earlier, this is what you will get as you continue to do your short rows. Basically, that's what it means. The row that you're knitting is going to get shorter and shorter because you're dropping them off. So you have less stitches over here, but more of a slope over here. So everything is going on a slant like that. So that's what you'll get. Okay, so it's just sloping like that with all the stitch markers. So you just have them hanging off like that right now. So I'm going to just do a couple more stitches just to refresh your memory if you've forgotten. So again, you just knit to the last 2 stitches. Take a stitch marker, slide them on your stitch marker, lock it up, and drop it off. Turn your work. Slip that as if to purl. You don't knit the first stitch, or don't purl the first stitch, pardon me. And on our last one, oops. So you knit it normally. And let's use a green one this time. Lock it up, drop it off. So this is going to be my last short row stitch, where I will now pick up the stitches from the stitch markers and finish off my short row. So as I was saying earlier, you will have a big slanted slope like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pick up all of these stitches, put them back on the needle, so that will bring your work back down to the same level as that first stitch over there. So it's going to feel weird because these are just hanging loose there, but they're safe. They're locked in a stitch locker. So you're going to knit this row normally until instead of 2 last stitches, you're going to knit to 1 last stitch on this row. And I want you to pay attention to this one here. This is what you need to do in order to not have a gap between the stitches. So this is my 1 last stitch before the last marked stitch. What you're going to do, I'm going to try to bring it close to the camera so you can see, you're going to pick up the strand right underneath. So there's your knitted loop, and there's the strand that was right underneath that loop, which is the previous stitch basically. So you're going to just take your right hand needle and just pick that up and put it on your left hand needle. So it looks like you have 2 stitches right now, and you're going to knit them together. If you are a loose knitter, you might want to knit that through the back of the loop just to tighten that up. And then you're going to go ahead and pick up your first or your last dropped off stitch there. Just pick up those 2 stitches, put them on your your left hand needle, take that off, and you're going to knit that first stitch normally. You don't do anything to it. And the second stitch, you're going to pick that up again. You're going to just pick up, see that right there? That was the loop that's hanging off right. It's like the root of that first stitch. Pick that up, put it on your left hand needle, and knit them together. That little tuck. Again, we pick up the 2 stitches, knit that first stitch normal, pick up the leg, push it on there, and knit them together. So there's always going to be 2 stitches that you pick up, but the first stitch you just knit normally. the second stitch, you need to pick up the little loop underneath it and knit the 2 stitches together. So again, pick up the loop, put it on the needle, and knit them together. You're going to continue on the same row. You don't turn in between. On the same row, you're just going to continue to go across until you've picked up all of your stitch markers, basically. Knit that normally. This is a great short row method that I found to have worked really, really well for me. I came up with this method while I was watching other videos on short rows because I was so frustrated with my wrap stitches showing, especially when you're working with finer yarn. Your wrap stitches will show on your wrap and turn with your wrap and turn method, and that just drove me crazy. So I had to find other ways of doing short rows that would not change my knit stitches or the pattern of my stitches, so that it's fairly smooth. And then I had a habit of not remembering where or when I last dropped my stitch, and then I would have to go back and continue counting. With the stitch markers this way, I know exactly where my last marked stitches are, and I don't have to go back and continue counting every single row. I just go to where my stitch marker is and I drop the last 2 stitches off. Again, we'll pick up that last leg, put that on there. And now we're back onto the same row, basically, where we started off the wrap and turn. So you do at this point now, you should be on the same level. So you're going to go ahead and finish off that row with your normal pattern stitch. So if this is my stockinette stitches, so I'm just going to go ahead and finish knitting it off normally. And there you are. There's your short row. You can see how it's nice and neat. There's no what I call scarring. Scarring is when, particularly with the stockinette stitch, you've got beautiful stockinette stitches going, and suddenly when you do your short rows, because of your wrap stitches, it will interrupt your stitches, and that can look quite unattractive. So I'm just going to finish off this row so that you have an idea of how smoothly these short row stitches incorporated into your work. If for some reason you are not able to get the stitches to tighten up, particularly if you are familiar with the wrap and turn, you will find that it could be loose because your wrap stitches were too loose. You've left too much excess yarn, and you will probably have a holy look, if you would, in between, and that can be quite visible, particularly for stockinette stitches where you have the same pattern throughout, and suddenly you have this line of little holes or little wrap stitches going across. And like I said, this is my absolute favorite way of doing short rows. I use this short row method for almost every pattern that calls for short rows. I would use this method because there's no wrapping, no turning, no memorizing where my last stitches were. I just came up with this method so that it just makes short rows a little more pleasant to knit with. So let's see the other side. Okay, it's a little bit loose there. But as you knit some more, so you can see here, as I knit some more, I can pull it together. And but that's your short rows. Now, eventually, well, this particular style here, where it's going to curve around, so as you add more short rows, you just see that this will just go around like that because you're creating a longer row this way, but this side is shorter. So for the particular pattern that I'm working on, it's actually creating almost like a circle look, and that's the short rows that that's creating that method. So I hope this helped, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and good luck with your knitting.